Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday. The S&P 500 was up 0.16% today. We did a little bit better than that as a whole, up about a quarter of a percent across the average account. So yeah, kind of a quiet day altogether, actually. It seems like the market is waiting for this stimulus bill to come through. So this might be a great chance for me to answer some questions that have been coming in, which is, we talked about yesterday about how well, we're doing with the accounts and why are we doing so well, and what's that process. And really what's happening is that we have a lot of investments, targeted indexes in our portfolio that are sitting in front of what they're calling the fourth industrial revolution. So the first industrial revolution, roughly 1760, was the start. Really, it was steam power, created the mechanization of power looms and those types of things. The second industrial revolution, about 100 years later, about 1870, electrification, and then that created assembly lines. The third industrial revolution, again, about 100 years later, 1970, and that created, the computers, digitization, automation, and those types of things. So what's happening from a standpoint of a catalyst. So and this comes from a presentation that was made to me by State Street. It's very well done. And so they're talking about artificial intelligence is one of the main catalysts, hyperconnectivity, the ability for us to all get on the internet and be able to, connect to different information and connect to different people so quickly. Exponential power is another huge, catalyst with quantum computing and these other things that are coming down. Of course, robotics and artificial intelligence, robotics and automation are another area there too. One of the really interesting things to me about this is just coming from the World Economic Forum, they're talking about sort of the fusing of physical, digital, and the biological worlds. And so that is wearable technology, implantable technology. They're helping some people to hear that can't, those types of things, genetic engineering. We spent some time talking about that too. So that is sort of the forefront of what's happening in this fourth industrial revolution, and what might come out of it. But there is some impact also. And I find this fascinating, that according to this presentation, 32% of all US workers and 14% of all global workers will need to change occupations by 2030. So it's a very fascinating component of this. That's where I think that has a political component in the sense that, how maybe frustration comes, or, how do we retrain? How do we move? How do we create a flexible workforce? So that'll be fascinating to see how that plays out. But the categories that they're talking about in this fourth industrial revolution are very fascinating. So space, SpaceX, space exploration, robotics, clean energy, cybersecurity, smart borders, wearables technology, drones, clean technology, virtual reality, smart buildings, autonomous vehicles, digital communities, enterprise collaboration like Microsoft Teams, like we use, on-demand economy, sustainable farming, genetic engineering, 3D printing, nanotechnology, smart factories, smart grids, electric vehicles, alternative financing, future payments. These are all areas, if you listen, that you've probably heard before when I talk about some of our targeted index. Now, we don't own them all, and there's a reason why, because you have to understand kind of how these work. There's a pattern. There's sort of the beginning of these pieces are really often. I remember what happened with solar power, for example. There was this huge run up in all of the company stocks. So this is taking, the fourth industrial revolution and understanding how to invest in it. And that run up was happening when they really didn't have much revenues. They didn't have profits. But there was this expectation that the future was bright, which it was, but they got way ahead of themselves. And then they tend to come back down. And then eventually, and what we're seeing now with clean energy is a much more mature, run up. With companies that have revenues and have profits and those types of things, not in every case, but in general. And so you have to be able to understand which categories are in that kind of height phase. You can still make money in those. You just have to understand what you're doing there, and maybe allocate a little bit less to those categories and make sure you've got your stop losses in place and those types of things. versus those industries that are in that more mature phase. They're all part of this fourth industrial revolution. They're not all on the same page as far as that goes. Very fascinating area. It is really interesting to me, and you can see the money flow just continues to come. Sometimes it leaves for a while, but it has been moving in that direction. And I think a catalyst, ironically, has been the pandemic. Has pushed us into that, fourth industrial revolution a little bit faster than we might have in the past. And so that is kind of what's going on here. This could continue on for quite some time. We could have downturn, we'll have to see what happens. But altogether, that's, if you're going to ask me, how come we're doing so well, it's because we're standing in front of the fourth industrial revolution. So look forward to seeing what's going to happen tomorrow, and I will talk to you then. Thank you.